Hi guys, so Reform UK MP Richard Tice appeared on Reform UK friendly GB News to discuss the rise of the far right in Germany and the appointment of former Brexit negotiator for the European Union Michel Barnier to the position of Prime Minister of France. Tice spoke out of the two sides of his mouth in this interview, first claiming that the new French Prime Minister will be a problem for Keir Starmer, but that the British PM is working to bring back freedom of movement via the back door. Another case of not understanding that France isn't the EU. Have a listen.
Michel Barnier becoming French PM. I bet you're delighted about that, Richard.
Honestly, I mean, just
one of your old
extraordinary.
mates. What? Well, do you think that's going to make life difficult for Reform particularly?
No, I tell you who it'll make life difficult for. Keir Starmer, who wants to cosy up to the EU, and Michel Barnier will be as difficult and demanding as he was under the Conservative government. And I think Keir Starmer will find that if he wants to reset the relationship, not that it needs resetting, by the way, then I think he'll find that he'll be literally legged over on anything he wants. And
France is not the EU. Why do we keep having to tell Brexiteers this? We have to keep informing them that France, individual member states of the EU, are not the EU. Keir Starmer will not be negotiating with Michel Barnier. He'll be negotiating, if there are negotiations, with the European Commission. Michel Barnier is no longer representing the European Commission. He doesn't work for it anymore. He's the French French Prime Minister. So this is nothing to do with France. It will be the European Commission that will be dealing with Britain. Now, I find it funny that he said this is a problem for Starmer, not a problem for Reform UK. Well, in a sense, yes, that's correct, because Reform UK are not in government. But Richard Tice and others continually talk about, well, you know, the way to deal with immigration is just to dump people back in France. Well, now you have a French Prime Minister who's pretty right-wing. Do you think he would go along with that if Reform were in power?
The risk is that we end up with freedom of movement through the back door. And this idea that you want freedom of movement for young people up to 30, that was the whole freedom of movement programme.
Yes.
That means basically opening the doors to more mass immigration.
Is Richard Tice stupid, or does he just pretend to be stupid? This is a question I keep asking on an almost regular basis. What was being proposed was not freedom of movement. It was a very limited scheme for people between the age of 18 and 30 to come to Britain for about 4 years. How is that immigration? Could they bring their families with them? No. Could they stay beyond 4 years? No. That's not freedom of movement. Either Richard Tice doesn't understand what freedom of movement was, or he's just lying.
Which suppresses British wages.
Are you familiar with these AFD co-leaders, Tino?
Sorry, before we get to this about suppressing British wages, but these people keep saying, well, we need to force people off benefits into these jobs, not pay people better wages. So, you know, on the one hand, they'll say, yes, we need to pay people better wages. We need British people to do these jobs and pay better wages. On the other hand, they'll say, look at all these people on benefits sitting on their arse all day. I don't believe that, but this is what Richard Tice and Reform UK believe. Let's just force those people off benefits. Doesn't mention anything about improving pay, but as we know, pay is not the issue here. People can't do the jobs are not available in the area, they don't have the skills, or it's not feasible to do these jobs. So on the one hand, they'll pretend that they care about increasing people's wages, but on the other hand, they'll say, well, let's just force people off benefits.
Thrapalla and Alice Weidel, who have risen up in Germany, being described as the far right. I mean,
I'm not familiar with them at all. But the reality is that if you don't deliver for your people as a political class, and you lie about important things like immigration, you pretend it's not an issue, you say, oh, we'll be fine, and actually it's not, and it suppresses wages. Don't be surprised if people then vote for someone else. And that's the reason that so many 4.1 million people voted for Reform, because they realise we're getting poorer, our quality of life is getting worse.
He's right in a sense. Political parties promised to improve people's lives. And if political parties do not achieve that, do not deliver that, then they're going to vote for somebody else. And they're going to vote for somebody who's going to promise them the sun, moon and stars. So people voted for reform because they wanted to give the Tories a bloody nose. People voted for reform because they thought Nigel Farage would be able to, deliver something. Well, they're going to be waiting for a while. But in Germany, what's happened? Yes, some people voted for this extreme party in relation to immigration, to bring down immigration. Others voted because they're not happy with what the central government was doing. There's still significant amounts of poverty in Germany. People in the East feel left behind, even after reunification. So this is why they believe a lot of people voted for this extreme party in Germany, and people voted for reform in Britain because they felt they felt their community was being left behind, was being ignored by the mainstream parties. And while the Conservatives used immigration and weaponized it, believing they could use it as a tool against the Labour Party, there was a huge blind spot, that being Reform UK. So there will always be parties who will say, look, the government is not doing a good job, vote for us and we'll fix it, knowing that they'll probably never get into power and they can just sit on the sidelines and snipe. They don't have real policies. They're not interested in actually improving people's lives. They're there just to improve their own lives or to have a bit of power. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.